Hey everyone, Sirturmund here again, and I am back. First, I wanted to say thank you to all of you and all of you who sent me some support messages through this tough time that my family is going through. I really appreciate it. I couldn't have imagined all the support that I received from you all. Really means a lot and really makes you feel like we're doing something right with this community. So if you're a part of the community, appreciate it so much. Appreciate the support. So, but we are back now with daily LOR videos. So today's going to be the first one for my return. And today I'm bringing you something a little bit different though, right? So instead of just a regular gameplay video, I mentioned on my last video on Sunday how I kind of wanted to do kind of like a resource type of video where I teach you all where to find the best resources for Legends of Runeterra so that you can become a better player and that you also understand where I find all the decks that I do that I end up showcasing to you all. And this is what this video is going to be about. It's going to be a long one, so I hope you stick with me, but it's going to go through all the websites and all the different people that I recommend following or keeping track of if you are really serious about competitive Runeterra and keeping on top of the meta and the stats and everything else that way. So let's jump right ahead to it right now. Now I have made kind of like this Word document, and I'm going to link that Word document below. And this Word document is going to have links to all the websites and all the things that we're going to talk about today, right? So again, I'll link that below. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go through each one of these and kind of show you all how I use these tools to kind of help me in both my content creation and also in my competitive aspect of Legends of Runeterra. So let's kind of start out from the top. And now these three websites that I'm going to go touch on first are what I like to call the jack of all trades. So they kind of do a little bit of everything. And these are really the three main websites that I would say that I use or that most people should be using to kind of get everything that they need. Now, I will say, just be completely frank with you all, there are probably websites that I miss here, and if there is, you can comment below and kind of mention those websites. This website, for the most part, and as well as the that I go, are things that I have used before. I don't get I'm not sponsored by any of these websites, so I'm not sponsored by any of these websites. But I will admit that I do get paid by MasteringRuneterra because I do write articles for them weekly. So obviously I'm gonna try to not be biased, but just keep that in mind. Just figure I should disclose that. Everything else though, I'm not sponsored or anything like that. So this is gonna be my completely unbiased opinion as just as a person kind of giving you a resource. So the very first one is one that you all should be familiar with right now, and that is RuneterraAR. So if we go to RuneterraAR right here, it will take you to this website right here where they have a lot of tools that you can use to kind of improve your Legends of Runeterra experience. This, I want to say, probably will be the most full website that kind of lets you do almost everything. So the very first thing you want to do is that when you go here, you want to create an account. And the reason that I recommend creating an account in RuneterraAR is because it lets you link your Riot account to RuneterraAR, and you can do that by kind of going to the settings. And I believe it shows my email. You already know that, so this is nothing new here. But you can go to your connections here, and you can actually link your actual Riot account to RuneterraAR, right? And that will actually link your account so that now when you go to your profile, which is going to be up here, you actually have your personalized match history. And this is one of the best tools in this website. You're able to kind of see here your match history, which tells you your stats. You're kind of see we kind of be doing pretty well with TF Nami Lee Sin, and kind of gives you all the match history here. It will also let you create decks and save them to your profile. So that's how I create. That's where I kind of post most of my decks that you then all see in my YouTube content, right? So this is all done through the RuneterraAR. Additionally, they have a bunch of other tools that you can take advantage of to actually boost up your knowledge of this game. So aside from just having access to, the profile and the match history, they have a meta and a stats tab up here, right? So the meta kind of gives you like a quick glimpse of how the meta currently is doing, and you can kind of filter it to whatever you want. So like right now, the default filter is like everyone, which includes all three servers, and over the past 2 days, right? And this, you can then filter by matches or win rate, or you can actually filter by the champions up here. Like if you want to just see stats with Karma, for example, you can do this, and it will bring up Karma decks only. This is a really nice tool if you kind of just want to get a glimpse of what people are playing right now in the meta. Maybe haven't been around for a while, or maybe you're looking for a new deck that you want to try. This is one of the ways that you can do that, right? And it's actually also one of the ways that sometimes I use to find new decks. usually what I like to do is that I like to go by win rate, right? Now, the thing about win rate that you gotta be careful of is that it's a much smaller sample size, right? So you're gonna have less sample size because usually the higher the sample size, the win rate tends to stabilize and kind of go down. But you can kind of see here, of course, not surprise to anybody who's been in this meta, is all Nami decks on top. I guess technically it's all Lee Sin decks, right? Because this is Lee Sin Victor, not Nami. But anyways, yeah, that's kind of how I end up finding. In my channel, I tend to be more competitive rather than more like meme type of decks. So I try to look for decks that have good win rates over the past 2 or the past 7 days to kind of give me an idea what are the best performing decks at the moment. But again, you can do matches here and just find what the most popular deck right now is in the past 2 days. In this case, if you're a Pantheon, and again, you can kind of filter this however you want. The stats are kind of doing like a similar thing. You have kind of similar filters here. You can do by regions, by the last 2 days, the last 7 days, all ranks, just mastered. And this is more just telling you the stats of the deck, right? So TF Swain, as you see in the top, he has recorded over 37 matches with a 55% win rate, right? And then you can kind of go here and just scroll down and actually kind of take a look at the best pilots and look here to show their deck to see what those best pilots are playing. So you can kind of get an idea of what those lists are. And then from right here, be able to just copy the deck code, opening the deck builder if you want to edit it and kind of change it around a little bit, etc., etc., etc. Like you have all these different tools that you can do. Additionally, you kind of see right here in the same page, it kind of tells you the best matches and the worst matchups. So it kind of gives you kind of like a mini matchup table telling you that Twisted Fate is like really good against Leona Yasuo, really good against Teemo Caitlyn, but also really bad against Field of Rush and Anivia, which makes sense. Swain tends to struggle against Shadow Owlstats. So those two kind of give you all this access there. RuneterraAR also has other stuff like leaderboards, for example, that you can just check out for each of the regions. We are right here, rank 6 still, awesome. You can go decks, right? So here you can look up other decks that people are posting in the website. You can filter by champion, etc. Really nice tool if you're just looking for decks like that. We see here Froil W posted a deck recently 2 hours ago. We'll have to check that out later. And they also have a deck builder, so you can build your own deck here and be able to just post it and make it public on the website. So those are all the tools why I think makes RuneterraAR one of the best profiles. So if you're not using RuneterraAR yet, I recommend that. It's really amazing tool that lets you do all this stuff. And even when you have like reveal season, they even have a tab here for new cards where you have a place where you can see all the new cards as they get revealed in the game. So it's kind of, again, it's kind of doing like a little bit of everything here, which again is really what I like. And the main page here that it brings you to kind of brings you like trending decks and what people like some of your favorite content creators are posting. You see Owi here, you see JO1, etc., etc. So really good website, right? So, and I kind of listed that here with some of the stuff, and I have the link right here in the website. The next one that I want to talk about is going to be Mastering Runeterra. Now, I have Mastering Runeterra listed under a little bit of everything section as well, because if you haven't seen recently, Mastering Runeterra has actually added like a bunch of new tools. And let me just close out this RuneterraAR tab since we're going to talk about Mastering Runeterra. So Mastering Runeterra started as obviously this project by Jason Florent and Magin Bay that really at first was doing mostly a lot of like articles, right? So this is one thing that's different from RuneterraAR, that sets Mastering Runeterra different from RuneterraAR, is the fact that Mastering Runeterra is posting weekly articles and weekly guides. So all these articles here are helping you learn how to pilot decks better, or just learn the fundamental of the decks better, right? Especially, I will keep an eye on some of the weekly articles that get released every week, right? So stuff like Hercules by the numbers articles, which usually gives you like the best decks, the best performing decks, right? So if you're too lazy to look at the stats yourself, you can just go and wait for Hercules to post his article where he actually breaks up all the decks. Again, I mentioned earlier how for Mastering Runeterra, I do write weekly articles from them, and the weekly article that I write for them is the best of 3 lineup recommendations. So Monte Cristo and I wasn't part of this week's article because obviously my grandma situation. So Monte kind of tackled last week's by himself. But every week, Monte Cristo and I are writing like a weekly article, giving people like different best of 3 lineups, right? That they can use to take the tournament, to take the gauntlet, etc. You know. So again, I think it's the best tool here is go to those weekly articles, but you also have deck specific guides if you want to learn about certain deck by itself. So for example, let's see what's the like. So here we have Lear posted a guide on Taric Puppet, for example. You can do that. Again, this is kind of what sets apart MasteringRuneterra from RuneterraAR. But they still also have a lot of the same tools that RuneterraAR does. And this is something new that has been part of MasteringRuneterra if you don't know. So just like in RuneterraAR, you can go to your profile and you can actually link, right, your Riot account here. So if we go to my profile and we go to connections, you can actually, okay, that's my YouTube. You can actually link your Riot account right here. That will allow you to kind of keep track of your decks, your match history right here, etc., etc. So kind of similar to RuneterraAR. Now, this is a brand new feature from MasteringRuneterra, so it's not as complete as RuneterraAR, but it's something to keep in mind if you're looking. If for some reason you really don't like RuneterraAR, then you have another option here with MasteringRuneterra that kind of does a lot of things. Aside from those two things, MasteringRuneterra also has other tools that you can use, which you can find right here on their tab on the left, right? So you have all the guides, and you can have like a guide breakdown, the gauntlet tournaments, like I talked about. You have a meta tier list, right? So this meta tier list lets you kind of see a snapshot of the meta, right? So it kind of like other websites do it. You can go here, filter from last 7 days, last 3 days. And again, just like how we saw earlier, Fiora Pantheon has kind of been the deck that's been dominating over the past 3 days. You saw Magin Bay reach rank 1 with it, for example. And you can also filter here a win rate, which somehow, for some reason, Tankench Nami is doing well on the win rates, I still don't believe that Tankench is the right option for this deck, but for some reason, this deck is like doing amazing, right? But again, very small sample size, so you always gotta be careful for that. Then here, similarly, you can find different decks that are posted by members of the MasteringRuneterra community. You can just create decks here because just like other websites, they do have their own way for you to be able to create decks on the website, right? So they do also have a deck builder that you can use to create decks right here. So that's something you can use right there. Then we go here to meta stats, kind of a little bit similar to the meta tier here, right? Just giving you the snapshot. I said with a little bit more description. We're giving you the good and the bad matchups. You can kind of open up here and see all the matchup tables right here. Gives you all the data that you need to know about the Fiora Pantheon and the different matches for them. They kind of have a new player resource tab here where it's more guides, kind of more I guess specific for new players if you don't know some of the things here, right? Some deck building, like deck building tips from What Am I, for example, passing guide from Gay Sensational, etc. Just like on the website, you have access to the leaderboards right here. Let's see again, Sirturmund, that's it. And then they also have a matchup table, right? So I kind of like this matchup table that MasteringRuneterra has, and it's gonna take a second here to load, even though I already clicked it. It kind of gives you like an actual table, right? So it gives you kind of an actual table with a set of decks on the left, a set of decks on the top, and you kind of get to see the matchup spread right here. And here we go, finally loaded. Like I said, like Swing Twisted Fate is up here because he has the most games in the meta. Fiora Pantheon right below it, and you can kind of see the matchup versus other different decks, right? So you can kind of see what is favorable into and what is bad into. This is a really great tool if you're looking to like build best of 3 lineups, because you can just open up this matchup table and try to find just that right combination of 3 decks that give you the best odds against the rest of the meta. So really, really great tool. And then in addition to that, again, if you're really into tournaments and gauntlet, they also have a band helper, right? So the band helper, you choose your 3 decks right here. So let's say Hymenora, Misfortune Twisted Fate, Elise Gwen Katarina. You choose the opponent's 3 decks right here as well. And let's just do the same thing because I'm too lazy to look up anything else. You press submit, and it will kind of give you like this matchup table telling you what decks are good into. Let's switch one of these up actually, just so that you kind of see how it looks better. So, right, so you get to kind of see, okay, my Hymenora is even against Esukena, Misfortune, and Elise, right? And it gets kind of helps you kind of get that idea of what your decks are good into when you're trying to decide what to ban in a best of 3 matchups. So yeah, MasteringRuneterra, lots of resources here as well. Is one of the other recommended websites in my opinion that you should have in the back of your, like in your toolbox if you're actually trying to learn Legends of Runeterra and get better at the game. Just very, very, very good resource. Let's move on ahead to the next one that I have in like my little bit of everything category, and that's gonna be LoRMaster, right? Now, LoRMaster, the reason that I have it listed in this little bit of everything category is because even though they have this website, their main function is actually a deck tracker, right? So this is actually a deck tracker that you can download into your PC that you can open up during the game. That will kind of help you keep track of, like, you know, what cards you have used so far, right? What cards you have left in your deck. So if you don't remember, okay, how many denies have I used this game so far? You don't remember, this kind of helps you do that and kind of gives you percentages, your odds of drawing the next card, etc. Lets you see your graveyard if for some reason you haven't been keeping track of what's in your graveyard or what your opponent has played, kind of lets you see that as well. So that's where their tracker comes into place. But aside from just a tracker, it's also a really good website if you're just looking for kind of stats in general. So right off the bat, when you go to the website, you kind of see that you open up with like this leaderboard and ladder highlight page, right? This leaderboard obviously is just like every other leaderboard. It tells you Americas, the European, EMEA server, and APAC, right? But what I really like about them is that they also give you kind of like this ladder highlight, which you can set for 1 or 3 days, which kind of gives you an idea of who has been the most well-performing player over the past 3 days or so, how much LP they have gained. Like this person here, bench buy, has gained 467 LP over the past 3 days using Swain Twisted Fate. That's nuts. And you can click his list here and you can kind of see their list already right here. One of Katarina, cool. You can copy that list and be able to just import it into your client and just kind of net deck somebody, right? So it's a really nice tool here. I will say that this is usually the website that I go to where I'm really looking for decks to showcase for you. I like the way that LoRMaster kind of showcase their data compared to RuneterraAR or MasteringRuneterra. I feel like it's a little bit cleaner, so it helps me look for like new deck ideas a little bit easier. Because what I usually do, right, if you go here to their tabs, they also have different things, right? So this page here is kind of like the leaderboard page. That's kind of where we are, where we start. Here, you kind of have a deck library that you paste your deck code and kind of save it. This really works better if you're actually in the app, because in the app it will actually save your decks, etc. But really, what I really like to use this website for is this page here, what we call the meta environment. So this meta environment is kind of similar to other stats websites where you kind of get to filter stuff by current patch, you know, region, etc. and just take a look at how different decks are doing. So in this case, once again, we see Swain Twisted Fate on the top because this is taking the whole patch. But if we go for the past 3 days, I bet you there's going to be Fiora Pantheon on the top in terms of win rate, right? So I guess in terms of win rate, we know it's going to be Nami, right? Which this should be the Nami. Okay, so it's triple Nami. This is the TF list. Yep. Who's playing? Why are people playing triple Lee Sin? Anyways. But yeah, it kind of gives you an idea here of the play rate, right? So I usually like to filter over the past 3 days. I like to filter to win rate and kind of see what deck lists are doing the best. And those are usually the deck lists that I want to showcase for you all in the channel. Like if you see here, look at that. That's that Soy Yumi list that we showcased a few weeks ago, right? A week ago or so. That elusive list, that's how I was able to find this list. I saw this, that it was doing well over like a certain number of games, and I opened it up, I click on span here, and it kind of gives me like different deck lists. The one on top is usually the one that's doing the best, and that's how I have the list, and I can copy and play that list, kind of see how it feels. Maybe sometimes I change some stuff, other times I don't change stuff, and then I showcase it for you all on YouTube. So again, this is usually the way that I find like the best performing decks, and that's actually also the way that I found Nami Lee Sin before anybody else found it out, right? So I was one of the first players that discovered Nami Lee Sin Twisted Fate, and it was because of this. Some other player, random player, we don't have names attached to the players here, so I don't know who came up with the idea of playing 2 Lee Sins, but somebody did, had a really good win rate with it, showed up on the stats, I copied, showcased it, and then like a week later, the deck blew up, and now it's the best deck in the meta, right? So it's a really nice way to get ahead of the game before anybody actually picks up games, if you're able to just kind of go through this data here directly yourself. Again, really good website if what you're thinking about is just kind of getting different decks, etc. You can also look up players here and look up players' match history, right? So if we go to Sirturmund, you can click on my profile right here, and it will take you to my player profile on LoRMaster tracker, and it will load up my match history here recently, right? So for some reason, I think this is not accurate. It's only showing one game, but it should show you. It usually shows you their match history here, so that you can kind of see their performance, right? I wonder why it's not showing, why it's not loading correctly here. Let's see if we can go to my Smurf. Feel bad if I just showcase this and it doesn't show exactly what I'm talking about, right? Usually I play a lot of my YouTube games on my Smurf on EU, and here we go, right? So it pops up. As you all saw, my last video was that Karma Master Yi deck, and you can kind of see here that we started out really bad at first until I kind of got used to playing the deck and kind of went from that. Actually, I believe some of these games were also on stream, so that's also why you have a lot more than what I ended up showcasing in the video. So, you know, just keep that in mind. You can look up yourself, look up your win rates here, see how you're doing with certain decks over the past number of games. You can see here I'm doing really well with Fiora Pantheon in this account, etc., etc. So this website also kind of does a little bit of everything. But yeah, so let's go ahead back to that sheet and kind of move on more to other websites, which might be a little bit unknown. But before I say that, notice my last thing here. If you're still using Mobalytics for LOR information, please stop using it. Mobalytics is not good anymore for LOR stuff. I used to be one person that used to use Mobalytics for everything LOR related before, but they really have kind of given up support for the Legends of Runeterra side of things. So a lot of the data, a lot of their guides, meta tier lists, etc., can be a little bit outdated, right? Every information that you used to get from Mobalytics, including deck building and everything like that, you can easily do it between these three websites here: RuneterraAR, MasteringRuneterra, and llorr-master.com, right? Those three should be more than enough to replace whatever you were using Mobalytics with. Just move on and move on to something else, okay? That's my recommendation. So let's go ahead here for some other websites that might be of interest for you for resource type of things. So if what you're looking for is more articles and like written guides to kind of learn how the game works better, or learn certain decks, how they play, then obviously we talked about MasteringRuneterra, giving you a lot of deck guides, daily guides, etc. But you also have another website called RuneterraCCG, and it's very similar to MasteringRuneterra in that they're posting articles, kind of breaking down different decks, right? And they also have like different articles, research sites and stuff. Like obviously this article here by Sori is talking about the best Swain decks, right? Sori does a meta report right here. Runeterra, who some of you might know, great content creator, does a whole article here talking about the best Fiora decks, right? So you're kind of getting like a whole other article website. So obviously with MasteringRuneterra, you get a certain players, right? You get articles by Gen Sensational, by Majin Bay, by Monte Cristo, etc. And this website, you're getting articles by Sori, Runeterra. So the quality is still there, just different players' perspective, right? So if you're someone that's looking for just articles, I would recommend visiting both MasteringRuneterra and RuneterraCCG. That way you're able to really learn more about a certain deck that you are more focused on. So again, if you're really focused on just articles, I recommend it here. They do have other tools up here as well, right? So they have some popular champion stuff. You can have deck. They do have a deck builder as well that you can use. So again, they're trying to do more as well. So nothing hurts to keep that in the back of your mind as well if you're looking for another place to just learn about different decks and different things out there, right? Unfortunately, myself, I tend to not be someone who reads a lot of articles, I'll be honest. So whether it's here or MasteringRuneterra, I tend to like more watching stuff. So so that's my personal preference. But I know some of you love to read, so you can take this as one of those resources. So that's for articles. Then there's a few other websites that are very more stats specific. And I really like these websites because they also have different tools that you can use. So let's kind of start with LoRMeta.com. So LoRMeta.com is one of my favorite websites to use. And it's the website that I mainly use the most when I'm really trying to look for like best of 3 lineups and when I'm writing my weekly lineup recommendations. And you'll see why when I walk through this website. So this LoRMeta website, this LoRMeta.com website, so LoR, and I have the link on the sheet that I link below, but it's LoR, -meta.com, and this website is made by a content creator called Balco, right? So there's a couple things that you can do here. So Balco is doing like a meta report every week, which is really useful as well. If you're kind of looking for something that kind of puts all that data in just one like report, then this is a really great way to go to, right? So let's look at the latest meta report that was posted on the 28th of September. So he breaks down all the data, where he got all, where Balco got all the data, the region play rates, right? So you get to see all that data here. Apparently Bilgewater is still the most popular region. No surprise there because of Nami. You can see the champion play rates right here. So if you're really interested in this data, you can kind of filter between shard and full data. You have archetypes here, analyzing the different archetypes. This is the one that was before the patch, right? So this was September 28th. So this was the day of the patch. So this was submitted into the patch, and that's why you see stuff like Gambling Sejuani up here, right? But it will tell you kind of the play rate, the win rate, and you also have the full data here if you want to look at it this way. Matchup table, so kind of like a smaller version of the matchup table. Similar thing, more data here, kind of gives you more access to certain matchups. Power rankings, right, is something that Balco does, where he kind of does where he kind of does like a power ranking of each of the different decks, and right away you can kind of see Lee Sin Nami is up there with like a really high score, power score, etc. And just kind of like a deck power, kind of giving you an idea of hey, this deck is something that you have to keep in mind. You're either playing this deck or you have to try to beat it, because you're gonna run into this deck a lot in ladder because it's doing really well, right? So you can kind of see this really shows the meta from last patch, right? Lee Sin Nami, Taric Poppy towards the end of the meta were the top dogs, with Pirate Aggro kind of sneaking in there with Viego and GP Sejuani as well. And then you also have like a meta score here that kind of does the same thing, where he, I mean, again, you want to look more into, you kind of read the breakdown of how Balco does it. Again, Balco is probably one of the favorite people that you should follow and visit their website, because this data is so good. If you're really focused on competitive and just, again, finding what's the best, most efficient way to climb, Balco can get you there because of the data that he presents and how they present it, right? So the meta score kind of, again, tells you kind of some of the archetype with power scores and the frequency score. You can see GP Sejuani is up there because he's played a lot more often than Lee Sin Nami, but technically Lee Sin Nami is a little bit stronger, but you know, it lets you kind of decide again how to pivot your choice of deck. And they even have a featured deck of the week. So this featured deck of the week kind of gives you a chance to net deck the top players, right, by seeing what they're playing. So you can see here that Sori had a pretty crazy 84.6% win rate with just Lee Sin Nami, right, over almost 40 games. So you can just click on Sori's deck list right here, and it takes you to the RuneterraAR deck right here, and you can copy it and play it into your own client. So you can go ahead, right, easy way to also net deck the top players. You also have all the deck codes here that Balco presents if you didn't find anything interesting, right? So these are a lot of different win rates, and also even has a section for the best players of the week. So a lot of players that are doing really well, over 70 games, if they have more than 6% win rates, those are the players that are showing up right here. Mr. Jason Florent apparently was up there too. I don't think we got up there ourselves because we didn't play that many games. We were only playing like 5 games a day at most. And yeah, so this is like the weekly report, right? Which is one of the great things about this website. But every time on the seasonal, Balco is also known for doing a seasonal report, which, let's see if I can find it. Where are you? Okay. Yeah, they also do like a seasonal report. For some reason, I cannot find it right now. Oh, actually, no, I'm thinking of somebody else. I'm thinking of the next one. Sorry. So Balco does a meta report, which you find here, and ignore me. But aside from just meta reports, this website has other tools which are really, really useful for your competitive experience. And those are the tier list, leaderboards, and everything here that's under tool. So this tier list kind of discusses a little bit more what we talked about, where he gave us kind of like a meta tier list, and this one is actually updated with live data from up to 6 hours ago, where Balco kind of gives us what he considers the best deck in terms of meta scores based on win rate and play rate. So the only reason that Twisted Fate Swain is higher than Lee Sin Nami is because he's played a lot more, right? So he's gonna be a lot more frequent in the meta. That's why it kind of has a higher meta score. But you kind of see that Lee Sin Nami has a higher win rate. So you kind of have to decide which way you want to go about it. But it tells you, hey, these 2 decks are the top 2 decks right now, with Fiora Pantheon and Lee Sin Action very close up there as well. You can filter this by last 3, 7, 24 hours, however you want to do it. Master, just platinum, and also region specific if you want to just see just America stats, right? Leaderboard's pretty straightforward, just tells you the leaderboard. One thing that I didn't discuss when we talked about RuneterraAR and also LoRMaster, when I'm looking at leaderboard data, I'm looking at the most recent list that opponents are playing, right? So Balco doesn't really show it here, but if you go to like llorrmaster.com or RuneterraAR, usually right next to the player, it shows you what the most recent list is, and that should kind of also give you an idea of what the best players are playing and what you need to actually climb. And then my favorite part of this website is found here on the tools. So kind of similar to MasteringRuneterra, Balco has the best of 3 band helper here, where actually, I'm not gonna say it because I don't want to. I think Balco is the one that provides it for MasteringRuneterra, but I don't want to confirm, so just ignore my rambling here. But you can do the same thing here as you saw in MasteringRuneterra, where you can set up your best of 3, set up your deck, set up the opponent's deck, and kind of get a nice little table. But really the best one that I like is this archetype tool that you can find here. So this archetype analyzer is what I use the most when I'm trying to find like matchup tables or the best decks to recommend, or even the best deck list. So you go to this analyze archetype, or again under archetypes right here, you type in, let's say, Lee Sin Nami. Current patch, you can change this, you know, last 7 days. Let's say last 3 days, because I want to get like the most recent data. And then you can limit this to platinum or masters. I think we have enough master players. We have like over 3,000 that I can just do masters. And then we go short stats. And this obviously takes a little second to load up. We'll show you that there's been 14,000 games on masters over the past 3 days of Lee Sin Nami, and it has almost a 60% win rate. That's nuts. The Riot needs to nerf this thing. But anyways, it shows you here what the best matchups are, right? So if you go to matchup, deck list, and cards, right? So matchups tells you the best matchups for this deck. So it kills Twisted Fane, Twisted Fate Swain, beats Fiora Pantheon, beats Karma G, really does well against Swain Nora and Leona decks, etc., right? At the same time, you can try to see what beats this deck. So 45% into Tari Poppy doesn't seem that bad to me. Is there anything that's like super bad? 42, Annie Jin beats Lee Sin Nami, you know, and you can kind of dig through the tables here and kind of keep looking at like, hey, what can potentially beat this deck? Apparently, Teemo Swain does beat it, but again, you know, you can go through this data. Additionally, you can also just go to deck list, and deck list will give you all the deck lists that Balco gathered the data from, and which ones have the best win rates, right? Matches played and win rate. So it seems pretty close, right, for most of the lists. But let's say this one here, right? This one and this one are outliers. They have like 4%, 3% higher win rate. So let's see what's different about this list here. We open it up, and you can kind of see, okay, it's playing one less double trouble, playing one concussive palm, and that seems to really be the only difference. So then you can make the decision there yourself. Is that worth the change compared to the most popular list, right? The most popular list, oh, actually, okay, so yeah, the difference with this two lists is just Twisted Fate Lee Sin. Okay, so apparently, sorry, it's not the concussive palm, it's the Lee Sin. So apparently, if you cut Twisted Fate entirely, your win rate actually goes up a little bit higher, which I guess makes sense. Lee Sin has become a lot more critical for this archetype, right? So again, you can kind of use this tool to find the best deck list and the best decks you want to play. And then finally, Balco also has their matchup table here. It kind of opens up an Excel sheet. You gotta have to go down here to the tabs and go to deck information, and then go to win rate, and win rate will actually give you that matchup table here. I like to use this one a lot as well when I'm looking at matchup tables. I feel like this one presents it a little bit more clear for me than what other websites do. So that's why I cannot recommend LoR-Meta anymore, right? It's, again, super amazing website. So let's move on to another website that's kind of similar to LoR-Meta, and you kind of see where my confusion came in from when we go here. And this is going to be llorr-stats, and that's with 2 L's, 2 R's, and then -stars.com. So this one is made by another player, and their name is Legna. At least that's how I always see her referring to them. And kind of similar to Balco, LoRGG is also doing meta reports, right? So they're doing meta reports right here every single week, where you kind of get the data here. You can see September 28th, kind of similar time frame as Balco. And it kind of does similar background, right? But presented a little bit differently. Some of the data might vary slightly as well, depending on where they got the data. But you kind of break up everything here. Tells you the region play rate, etc., etc. You can do it by table. You can do it by the graph. Champion combinations, what their play rate is, day by day data, right? Your win rates right here. So kind of like a win rate table. And even a matchup grid right here. So you can see it's very, very similar, right? LoR-Meta and LoR-Stats are both great resources, and I would recommend using either one of them if you just want to go like right into the deep data and analyzing this for Legends of Runeterra. There's a lot. Again, there's a lot of resources out there that players don't know about, and this is one of them, right? Win marathon. So this is kind of like top 3 players that had the highest win rates, right? So you can kind of see here, Coleman Jack went on a 19-game win streak with Nami Lee Sin. Card presence, right? How much these cards are seen in Master. Ionia has been played 93% of the time whenever you run into Ionia, and you know, etc., etc., etc. Additionally, if you go back here, LoRGG is the one that does the seasonal reports that I was referring to earlier. So every time coming around the seasonal, LoRGG does a seasonal report right here, and you can see this one came up from August 27th. So if that's something that interests you, like after the seasonal, LoRGG kind of breaks it down, tells you all the matches that they gather. They tell you what decks were played, right? The win rate of the decks during the open rounds of the seasonals per region or everything combined. They tell you which the best performing decks here, which last season was Action Kai'Sa and Pirates, of course, no surprise there. The region play rates, etc., the top player champion of choice. It does all this data here, kind of breaking up each one for each of the things for you. And then it tells you even the deck list of the top players that make it to the top cut. So if you go to top players deck code, you see here for Europe, it shows you the players that went 8 wins, right? So that's CC total, etc., etc., and tells you kind of like all their decks here and their lineup. So if you're ever wondering where you can find those top seasonal decks, this is where you can find them, right? In LoRGG's report in llorr-stats.com. Again, I have the link directly on my sheet right here if you can't remember exactly how to spell LoRGG's website. So yeah, so again, seasonal report. Additionally, they do also have matchup table right here for LoRGG, which kind of, I said, is presented a little bit differently. It's kind of like more like a full table, and kind of tells you, Swain Twisted Fate here against Lee Sin Nami. He's played about 3,000 games, and obviously Swain is always losing for the most part, 43% win rate versus Lee Sin, right? So this kind of gets you an idea. You can actually type in your deck right here. So let's say we go Nami Tankens, because why not? Actually, Nami Tankens is probably not going to have a lot of data. So let's just say Nami Lee Sin, right? So this lets you filter for just Nami Lee Sin, and let's say you want to know specifically how it does against Pantheon Fiora, right? So we look at Pantheon Fiora here. Here we go. And it tells you, hey, Lee Sin Nami versus Pantheon Fiora has a 55% win rate. So if you want to look at very specific matchup tables or matchup specific data, this is another way to do that here because of LoRGG's information that he provides to the Runeterra community. And this is only looking at Master, but you can expand it to Diamond. You can create a grid right here, right? This gives you that regular table that you'll be looking at, and even gives you for an older patch if you wanted to, right? So you can actually look at matchup tables from previous patches, which a lot of other places don't do, right? So really, really, really nice resource here. And there's one more thing I wanted to show here. Let me actually go back here. The meta, right? So the meta kind of gives you a meta analysis. So again, kind of like another meta snapshot, telling you what the best decks are right now, which is Lee Sin Nami, Fiora Pantheon, Swain Twisted Fate. No surprise there, and kind of go from there. So yeah, and you can actually click at different stuff if you need to, etc. Yeah, they have like LoRGG has other tabs right here with meta evolution, stats, etc., etc. And yeah, again, these two websites are very similar, and I would use both. I don't have any favoritism for both. They both provide you a lot of data, and it always helps to kind of verify data from one website to the other. So LoRMeta.com and llorr-stats.com, Really great resources. The last one that I'm going to discuss right here is going to be LoRGG, another stats website. I haven't personally used LoRGG that much, so I'm probably not going to give it all the credit it deserves right here, but it has a lot of other things that you can do as well, right? So you have your archetype data here, showing you your most played deck and the win rate, lead sin, the win rate, etc. You have leaderboards right here. You have region-specific win rate. You have card-specific win rate, right? So you're able to like look at decks here, go and look for different archetypes and see what the best archetype is, and then you click on the deck, and it kind of gives you a breakdown of how each of the cards are doing, the inclusion percentage, and how it actually does in the meta, like how each card is doing, right? So really nice. You look at the deck list here. If you hover over the eye, yeah, so if you hover over the eye here, it gives you access to the deck list, etc. And you can again go for card gallery, card statistic, giving you the win rates. So it's kind of cool because you get to see exactly the win rate on a card by card basis. That's one of the things I like about LoRGG. When I was kind of researching for this video, that I think this is cool, right? This is cool. But again, I think most of the information here you can get it from the other websites as well, and probably present it a little bit better. But yeah, not gonna hurt anybody to just have this as well as they continue to improve. So let's continue now to more MISC resources that I recommend you using as you go and improve your Legends of Runeterra gameplay. So moving on now to no longer am I going to discuss websites. Now I'm gonna discuss more like a specific people and Twitter accounts that you should follow and different resources, right? So we talked about RuneterraAR, MasteringRuneterra, LoRMaster, RuneterraCCG, LoR-Meta, llorr-stats, LoRGG. Those are all great websites that kind of put all this data and all these tools available right in your fingertips. Now, I'm a big fan of Twitter. I know not everybody's a big fan of Twitter, so you can skip this section if you don't really care. But there's a lot of awesome folks on Twitter and a lot of awesome accounts on Twitter that you can actually follow to get a lot of information about this game, right? So one of the best ones recently, and it's actually by Balco, who again we talked about Balco as the creator of LoRMeta.com, and Balco has created this account called LoRMeta Updates, right? So this LoRMeta Update account does kind of like a daily recap of the archetypes for each of the 3 regions, the best archetypes, how it's doing, and also the top LP games by different top players. So you can see here, for example, the Asia Pacific, so the APAC region for October 3rd. So these are the best top archetypes in Master from the APAC region over the past day. And you can see Fiora, Twist of Fate, etc. tells you the win rate and their play rate. At the same time, as you scroll down, you can see like has the different deck lists right here for each of the archetypes, right? If you open up the comment here, you have the different stuff for each archetype, the different deck lists, the top winning deck list for each of the archetypes. And he also posts like daily LP gains, right? So if you look here in the Asia Pacific region, Blue lost the most LP in this day, and it tells you the deck list that they did to lose the most LP, right? Similarly, what's probably more useful for you all is looking at the players that gained the most LP. So on October 3rd, these top 20 Master players gained the most LP. Sean gained 328 LP. Wow, that's a lot. What deck were they using? Well, you can just scroll down here and you can see right here, most played deck by Sean to climb 328. And it was Lee Sin Nami. You go ahead and copy their deck list and then go to any website or your client and just copy the deck list right there to see if their deck list is any different than what you've seen for other Lee Sin Namis, right? Maybe Sean discovers something here that nobody should expect. So really good resource this account is to just kind of have a daily reminder of how the meta is doing on a daily basis. It lets you kind of pivot and know what you should be playing or what you should be trying to beat as you queue up for ladder each day, right? Kind of continue with Twitter people that I want to follow. One of the people is going to be Conansson. Now, I have a whole section dedicated for Conansson later down in this website, but Conansson is another content creator that releases like a bunch of like data here and a bunch of different resources to help both new and older and competitive players alike. And they also have this thing where they do like daily LOR rules here. So for example, here I guess this one is more for champions, but let's look at another one of those. Okay, actually, look, this one is actually with me in the image. Look at that. So daily Runeterra rules 127. Spell shield protects a unit's attachment from Quietus, right? It breaks afterwards. So if for some reason you didn't know if Quietus equipment breaker will get stopped by spell shield, you know, Conansson kind of confirms that for you, and you can kind of scroll down, and they have a lot of different rules here, right? That they post every time of different gameplay mechanics. So it's a really nice way to kind of keep track of any random ruling or card interaction that you might not know about. The next person I suggest is Drizzov. So Drizzov is a top player, right? So he's an amazing master player, probably one of the best players in Runeterra. But on top of just being a really great competitive player, he kind of always posts stats and different tools to kind of also help you, right? So for example, let's go. Let me see what's the most recent. So there, for example, he's posting some advice here on what he believes is the best data, right, for him to bring. But this is an example here. He posted this tool on October 2nd that actually lets you look up your win rate through the past metas, right? So right here, you can look up your player account. So for me, it's going to be Sirturmund, NA1. We press enter, and it's going to populate this data. Might not work for me right now, or it might just take a while to load. It kind of brings up all the data from my account and kind of see how it's done recently, right? So Drizzov is a really good tool because he's always posting kind of interesting things like that, data related things. Maybe I need to actually capitalize everything the way that I have it. Oh, there we go. So it doesn't need to be capitalized. So this, for example, this tool that Drizzov created lets me see what my best decks have been, right, in the past like year. I think this one is only limited to 2022, but you can kind of see here my Lee Sin Nami has an average of 73% win rate over 125 games, so it's by far my best performing deck over the past year. But you can kind of see also other decks here like Jimmy Pantheon, Tyric Poppy, right? My worst deck is Tamkin's Udyr, and I tried to make this deck work, but you can kind of see it's not for me. Yasuo Katarina, you know, Annie Jin, not great for me, right? So Drizzov is always posting cool things like this. So it's also another tool that I recommend following so you can keep track of some cool stuff that they might post. Another person that I recommend is Dr. LoRr. And did I copy the link wrong? There we go. I think I just put an extra. Let me I need to update this, right? So Dr. LoRr, and here we go, Dr. LoRr 4. For some reason, why did is this? Wonder why. It's the same link. Anyways, Dr. LoRr, right, is another person that usually tends to post a lot of stats. They get to post like certain like deck breakdowns, right? So if you want to also keep track of stats in like an easy format on Twitter, Dr. LoRr is a great resource to follow. They always have different discussion of meta breakdowns, etc. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so again, Dr. LoRr is using a lot of the data that you see from Balco and Legna, but he kind of presents in a different way. One of my favorite contents from Dr. LoRr is when he does like the deck. He analyzes like a certain archetype and kind of breaks it down by, okay, you know, which cards are working for this deck, which cards are probably not good, etc. I'm trying to see when the last one that he did is. For example here, right? So Trundle timelines, right? He breaks down Trundle timelines and kind of tells you, hey, look, if you have Ornn in your deck, your win rate is worse than if you have no Ornn in your deck, right? Etc. etc. So another just great resource if you want to keep track of stats. And then another one I want to showcase is going to be Santupea. So Santupea is a little bit different, right? You're not looking for stats with Santupea. You're looking more for tournament information. So this is more if you're interested in gauntlets or best of threes, and you're looking for lineup ideas or how tournaments are going. First of all, like Santupea is always posting like every week about upcoming tournaments. So if you want a place where you can find where the upcoming tournaments are happening, community tournaments, follow Santupea, and they will give you like all that information. But in addition to that, after each tournament is done, right, usually Santupea also tweets out the results of the tournament. So if we go, for example, here, So Santupea, Jan Sarah, right, won a tournament on October 2nd, whatever this is, right? And you can click on here and you can see Jan Sarah, and you can kind of scroll down, and Santupea will tell you the 3 decks that Jan Sarah used to actually win the tournament, right? So Jan Sarah came in with Master G Karma, Nami Twisted Fate, and Lee Sin Action. Wow, this is a pretty annoying lineup to go against Triple Ionia, right? So I really like this this person in Twitter, because again, it's a really great way to like look at what top players are winning tournaments with, and kind of deciding, well, wow, would that best of 3 lineup work for me, right? Okay, so I see that players are kind of thinking the same way that I'm thinking, and how I should build my lineup. So really great tool that you should follow as well. And lastly, we have 4OW. I discussed that last video. Just trust me. Just trust me. Moving on, though, I did mention, right, with Conansson, aside from just their Twitter, I have like a whole corner here dedicated for all the resources, right? So when we opened their Twitter earlier, you might have seen that Conansson has this tweet here pinned. And that's because Conansson does a lot of other resources to kind of help all of us players out. I would recommend just going to the Twitter directly, but I did add them here and kind of like their little corner here, just as resource for them to be able to, you know, if you want to have a shortcut here, right? So one of the things that Conansson has here is a rule book. So this is like the unofficial Runeterra rule book. So if you're ever interested in how certain interactions work or how the game works in general, this should get you most of your answers, right? So this has from really basic stuff like game fundamentals here, like a game starts by 2 players, right, to really more in-depth stuff, right? This is very detailed. You can see it's 42 pages, right? We stop here. We're at a breakdown of Fearsome, right? So it's telling you what keywords are right here, breaking down each keyword for you, right? We go scroll down even further, and now we're talking about equipment, right? So how do equipment work, auto equipment, etc. This is really cool, right? Because it tells you right here, silence doesn't affect equipment, which is a common mistake that I see a lot of players do. So if you ever find yourself bored with nothing else to do, you can just read through this manual, right? It might teach you a lot of things about Legends of Runeterra that you did not even know about. A lot of different interactions of how things work, right? A lot of this, obviously, you can gather from the posts that he makes on certain like the rule tips that they do on our Twitter. But again, this is more of a comprehensive list where everything's kind of put together at one, right? So like here for Slay, it's telling you that a husk killing itself doesn't count for Slay. So that's very important because it means like a Nasus Kindred deck doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? So pretty crazy stuff. This is like probably the best resource you can get out there, right? So I recommend going through there. They also have use single card. So this is kind of like a version that kind of goes through each card and kind of gives you a breakdown of how each card works, right? So you have, for example, Cannon here, tells you the regions, the name, mana cost, everything, kind of tells you the card text, and kind of tells you some connected rules related to Cannon, right? So the level up only requires a unit to be summoned, right? The same ally means an ally with the same name. Cards that transform kind of the same ally despite the transformation. So that's kind of cool, right? So a card that transformed like the Sun Workers is still kind of the same name, even though they have transformed. And that's something I actually didn't know, for example, right? So it kind of gives you all this information about the different rules and stuff. Like, look, Macro the Stone can be silenced, apparently. So if you're looking for more card-specific rule set and interaction, then the single cards rule kind of gets you there. And then Conansson also is a very great person when it comes to Path of Champions. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can go to kind of like the Path of Champion database where they break down every single encounter right here. You can kind of scroll here through the powers, star powers, items, relic. Like, this is probably the best Path of Champion resource that you can find out there if you're really interested in being successful with Path of Champions, because it literally just gives you a breakdown of everything with the encounter, right? Is so good. The main champions, etc. Like, this is nuts, right? It's a lot of work, so we should show Conansson some love because of that. And then lastly, we have kind of like a matchup tips kind of from Conansson as well. So if you go here to kind of like the matchups, It's not like a matchup table where it kind of gives you some matchup tips about how certain matchups work. So if we look here, for example, like Annie-Jin versus Annie-TF, kind of tells you like it's a burn versus removal matchup, and it kind of gives you some tips here of how to navigate the matchup, right? Like rear guard can evade the blade, etc. Right? The TF red card can wipe the board, so you should probably play around TF red card, etc. etc. If you let TF level up, you're pretty much gonna lose this game as the Annie-Jin player. Right, so you have some rare matchups here as well, some overview here too. I kind of like this because it's really cool to kind of see some advice, right, on how each matchup goes. It's a little bit more subjective though. Obviously, it is more the opinion of Conansson and whoever is helping them come up with all these matchup tables, so just keep that in mind. But it's still a really good resource, especially as newer players, as you getting to learn the matchup for the first time, right? Like Sundays versus Noxus, Shadow Owls, Gohar, right? You need to understand how that matchup goes, so on and so forth. So really cool, really cool. Again, make sure to follow Conansson on Twitter, but so you get access kind of to all these resources right here. Moving on, the rest of this document is going to be more like MISC stuff, right? So if for some reason you don't know, there is a main website for Legends of Runeterra, and make sure that you kind of go there, you understand how to get this. If you go to, if you filter by news, that's where you get like kind of like your most of your articles that they release, including like the patch notes, right? So this is where you're finding out your patch notes when they come out. I like this tab here, competitive. You might not know about it. It has a lot more lists in terms of for those players that are more competitive. So you're looking more for the World Championship standings, for example, right? And how where you are currently on the list. This is where you want to look at this there. It also has, if you scroll a little bit further down on that competitive tab, it will tell you like the breakdown for tournament, for World Points qualification, etc., etc. So main website, I figure most of you don't know it, but I figure I should just mention it. Then we have Reddit. Now, Reddit is an interesting resource. So you do have two main subreddits, right? So you have the main Legends of Runeterra subreddit, which is right here. And, you know, you do have a bunch of, like, shit posts sometimes. But every now and then you do have some nice stuff as well, right? So you do have some nice stuff that kind of teach you some things about the game or kind of give you an idea of how the game is going. You have like these daily discussions that you can join in and kind of talk about Deny and kind of get an idea about other players are feeling about Deny as well, etc. But the other reasons that I like is more the competitive, right? So the second subreddit is actually the competitive subreddit, and this is more catered to competitive players, right? So here's where you're gonna see more guides. You're gonna see the links posted when there's like a world update, etc. So I would, you know, if you're focused more competitive, I would take a look at this to kind of get an idea of how everything here, you know, to kind of keep track of how things are going from that competitive standpoint. But there is one tool that I really like for the main Legends of Runeterra subreddit, and that's going to be the resource, right? So they do have a new player guide and resources here, and it kind of breaks down through everything in the game as well. So it's kind of similar to the Conansson unofficial Legends of Runeterra rulebook, but obviously in a different format. So it kind of tells you everything here, kind of explains how the game works, region roads, etc., etc. You can kind of scroll down. It has a lot of resources that you can click here as well. So it's kind of like our guide that we're going to share with you all today, just in a different format. It even has some YouTube and Twitch streamers that they recommend. You know, maybe you're not following this guy here yet. I would just go to their YouTube, right? I would go to their YouTube here, Sirturmund and LoRr, and just make sure to subscribe if you're not yet, etc., etc. They have a lot of resources in this website, right? So I will take a look at that. So that's Reddit. Then the other one I wanted to touch on was going to be just Discords in general. It's going to be very hard for me to list all the Discords out there, but Discord is a really great resource if you're looking for more personalized discussion and advice. Now, almost every single big content creator has a Discord community, right? I have one, Majin Bay has one, Alkedo has one, etc. You can join those Discords, and usually you can ask a question and you're going to get an answer from either the streamer or the YouTuber themselves or from the community actually helping you out on answering that question, right? So take advantage of Discords. Take advantage of Discords. That's something I didn't do a lot in the beginning. I wouldn't recommend the main Legends of Runeterra Discord because obviously they have a lot of random players there. But usually those community Discords tend to be more dedicated players that are answering and talking in there. So you get to get a lot of advice, a lot of different tips and advice and decks and of how things are working there. So I would recommend, and I just realized that I have had this thing somehow the whole time. So I would recommend kind of checking that out and kind of seeing there. And then the very last thing I wanted to discuss is going to be the Aegis Esports League. Now, this is a weird resource that probably not going to be for everybody, right? So Aegis Esports, if you're not familiar, is like a weekly league, happens every few months or so. I think the next one is actually starting soon in later this October. And it's like every week you have I think you have a bunch of teams, right? I think this time it's like 36 teams per week that are competing in this best of 3 games. So think of like an NBA or NFL, etc. It's literally the same thing, right? They're competing weekly. Now, when they are competing, you have to submit deck lists and best of 3 lineups. And Aegis Esports does a really, really good job of keeping track of all those lineups and all those deck stats. So you end up with this sheet now that you can actually use to be able to like keep track of everything of what top players are playing in this league and kind of give you kind of like different lineups idea. I use this sometimes as a cheat sheet to kind of get some ideas on best of 3 decks. So kind of let me show you an example of how the list from last year looked like. So there is an example of how like the Aegis Esports like league looks like, right? So every week they're releasing like this weekly like master sheet, which you can access if you join their Discord. And in this master sheet, you can actually go here on the tabs and look at each group and then each player's lineups for that week. So for example, if we go, and this is the old data from I think the week 2 of the Aegis Esports season 1 league, which happened earlier in the spring. And if you go to week 2, for example, you can kind of see here, right? These are the group 3 week 2 lineups, right? So they're split into different groups, and this is what I'm talking about. You kind of get an idea of what different players are playing. Like we participated in the league last spring, and you can see here, right? So Sirturmund, right? I brought Victor Lee Sin, Darkness, and Feel the Rush that week, right? So I can go here and look, okay, so Sirturmund brought these 3 decks. That looks like an interesting lineup. Let me copy that and take it to Gauntlet. So this is what I'm talking about using the Aegis Esports as kind of like a resource that you can actually take advantage of when the league is running. Because this is like most of the top players that you know about, myself, Magic Bay, 4LW, Prodigy, literally almost every seasonal champion participates in this, right? Including also they have an European version of the league, right? So you end up with this one place where you have so many top players. You know, what am I? So I cannot list them all that are posting like different lineups every week. So you kind of get an insight into what all these top players are doing on a week per week basis by kind of checking out their lineups and potentially copying them for your Gauntlet or your community tournament. So that is why I kind of have Aegis Esports here. There's an invite here to the server if you want to use that. But again, this is more for like hyper competitive people, right? So but yeah, I think that's all the resources that I have for you all for today. It ended up being a super long video, and that's because, as you all know me by now, I talk a lot, so I'm sorry about that. But I will kind of have everything timestamped below for you all to kind of check out. And again, I post this link below as well, so you kind of just get an idea. A nice easy way to kind of shortcut, and I kind of put like bullet points for each of them as well of what I think and stuff and what they do. But if you're not using these resources yet, make sure to use them. They're going to help you out a lot. Whether to find new decks, whether to see what decks are doing well so that you can climb to masters, or if you're already masters to climb to the top 10, etc. Like I said, you find some hidden gems, right? I found Nami Lee Sin before most people did because of this, and I used that to climb all the way to like 450 LP before most people found it. Like, you find hidden gems if you're able to look to this data and the stats and know how to look for it. So that's why I think it's important to be able to understand this data. And again, it also helps you when you're preparing for seasonals or tournaments, when you're able to look at a matchup table and understand what decks can do well versus other decks, etc. So a bit of a different video than usual. Let me know what you all think about kind of like this breakdown. But yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. I should probably stop talking so I don't make this video even longer. So Again, thank you once again for all the support. Tomorrow we'll probably do something different as well. Probably do like a best of 3 lineup recommendation on how to build a lineup in preparation for the seasonal this weekend. And then we'll kind of return for our regular content more on Friday. So hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, if you did, please make sure to like it below and subscribe to us. We post LoR videos every single day. You can also find us on Twitch at Sirturmund, where we stream 2 to 3 times a week. And you can also find us on Discord and Twitter. The links to those are both in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all again tomorrow.